I'm interested to know, and I think the audience would be interested to know about your journey as well. Someone who came from those kind of Christian Zionist backgrounds and then have been on this journey, kind of deconstructing some of that. So if you can just tell us a bit about your journey and your story behind kind of all of that work that you've been doing recently.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'll try to be fairly brief, but like most evangelical Christians, I was raised in a Zionist, I mean, I would just say dispensational, which is Zionist. I don't even know if the term Zionism was, I don't remember hearing that term growing up, but definitely, you know, God has a special place for Israel, and that includes the modern state of Israel. And, you know, Bible says Israel, my map says Israel, seems legit. So I never really thought about it too much. But my undergrad training and my seminary training were in dispensational context. But my postgrad, my doctoral work was not. It was at Aberdeen University, you know, just a secular university. But I would say halfway through, maybe even before that, maybe even at the beginning of seminary, I began to kind of question dispensationalism. And by the time I was done with seminary, I was like, yeah, I'm not a dispensationalist like this for exegetical reasons, you know, it didn't match up, you know? So, so I kind of, you know, well, again, I didn't even think, so I kind of left dispensationalism, but I didn't really even think through how the modern state of Israel fits in with that. I did spend a semester in Israel in 1999, my last semester of my undergrad. I was, and this hurts me to say this now, but I was completely uninterested in the modern situation. I was there as a Bible student. I wanted to study the sites. I wanted to dig in the dirt, do archaeology, study geography. I was only concerned with understanding the Bible better. And it was a rich time. But you're living there. So there's conversations and ideas and things in the air. I remember hearing about these settlers that were Zionists, and you know, they believed so passionately for the land that they even moved into these super dangerous Palestinian territories. And I was like, wow, that seems really noble and courageous, you know. But you know, that was kind of like the only thought I gave to it. But you know, touring around the land, it was just in the air that when we come across a Palestinian village, there's just this kind of like, I don't know if it was ever said out loud. I would love to go back in time and just record what was actually said by teachers and people or whatever, but you just get this sense of like, this is kind of enemy territory. Be careful, you know. You know, they live in, you know, like bad conditions, and they bring that upon themselves, and just be, you know, it got a little tense when he came into a Palestinian village. And I distinctly remember going to the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. And I remember looking up and seeing a sign that said Bethlehem Bible College. And I don't know where it was. I don't even know where it is in relation, but I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, wait, there's a Bible college here? And I again, this isn't an exact quote, but I remember hearing something like, yeah, but it's Palestinian, so it's not really Christian. It was kind of like, well, and I was in an environment where if you're not like, you know, if you were like Catholic or Orthodox, you're probably not a real Christian. So I mean, that might have been the broader context. Anything other than like American evangelicalism, we're kind of suspicious of everybody else, including like, you know, Pentecostals and basically everybody outside of our narrow circles. But so I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of Christian in name, but not really. And that was just the passing thought I had, you know. So that does capture kind of my just real passive like absorption of the cultural air about Israel Palestine. You know, there's basically a good side and basically a bad side. Israel, I mean, it's in the Bible, right? God's people, so they're basically good, and Palestinians are basically bad. And if you ever hear about any bad things that Israel does, it's like, well, that's just kind of like misinformation. And so I never really questioned it. it was I would say maybe a year or two before October 7th when I started to give minimal thought to it. And at that time I had already deconstructed, I mean, maybe that's not the best term, but I, rethought my dispensationalism. I had become committed to nonviolence against my very militaristic background. I, kind of like, hey, what does the Bible actually say about all these things? And really, really kind of reconstructing my beliefs. And about 2 years before October 7th, now when I heard the term Palestinian, or like a friend of mine has a Palestinian wife, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Not like, oh, wow, you married a terrorist or something, which I probably would have thought like 20 years ago. Now it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I wonder what I would think about that now if I looked into it more. Long story short, I vividly remember October 7th and being, obviously horrified by the news that was coming out, and just, any slaughter of innocent people. And at this time, I hadn't really understood the history or context or anything. It was just like, gosh, Hamas went on this rampage. But I remember immediately thinking, 5 minutes after I felt sick to my stomach about what was going on, I felt even sicker to my stomach. This is probably the shift in my thinking. I remember thinking even more sick to my stomach because I knew Israel was going to respond with 10 times, 100 times more force and destruction than what they experienced on October 7th. And I just said, oh my word, thousands, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians are going to be slaughtered in Gaza. This is like the afternoon of October 7th.
Right.
And that's what I just said.
Sadly, we're right. Sadly, that's what happened. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and so when it started happening, it wasn't even I was like, well, I knew this, of course this would happen. But that's what really said, I really want to understand this more, because this is just horrifying. And then when I started to hear Christians celebrating it, supporting it, saying, I was just like appalled. And that's what drove me into saying, I really want to understand this better. That's what led to my conversation with you, several other people on my podcast, that led me to read a ton of books and basically spend an hour to 3 hours a day paying attention to news, looking at social media, listening to journalists who have been studying this for decades. And so that's been the last 2 years of my life, really.
Yeah, you've been going through like a deep dive into all of this. I want to pack that with you and talk about this kind of Christian passive attitude, even complicit attitude. It struck me when you said that you went to Israel, and then when you go to Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, and the two-state solution says the West Bank is in what is Palestine. But that's such an accurate description. If you go to Israel, you don't go to Palestine. In the sense that you go to Bethlehem, and which is all Palestinian, and there's a Bethlehem Bible College, which, by the way, Preston, in American standards, Bethlehem Bible College is as conservative, evangelical as it gets. The founder, Bishara, and the faculty there are like very, very conservative and evangelical. But then, because you went to Israel, right? So you cannot think well about the Palestinians. You cannot think well about Palestinian Christians, who in this case were Palestinian Christians. And that is, I'm just going to use this kind of harsh language here. Like, you were part of this kind of brainwashing trip, right? That you have no real encounter with the people in that.
No. I do remember walking the streets of Jerusalem, and we had there was actually a Palestinian guy. He owned a shop, and we actually exchanged all our money through him. And he loved, all the students would, all these Christian evangelical 19-year-old students would go to his shop, hang out at his shop. His name was Shaban. And we would all, that in the school, Master's College, now Master's University, John MacArthur School, like the teacher said, this is where you go to change. Shaban's great. He's awesome. If you need anything, go to Shaban. And I remember being like, this guy's, it's almost like, wow, he's Arab and he's awesome. which is
Shocking-
also obviously
shocking.
racist in its own kind of
Right,
weird subtle
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But it was like, that was a little bit of a chipping away at like, oh, and I talked to other shopkeepers and stuff, and I was like, I they come drink tea, talk, love to have conversations. And I was like, oh, this is maybe the line between good people and bad people is a little blurrier than I thought. So
that
anyway.
Palestinians are people just like anyone else. Shocking.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah.
Shaban, I don't know the person, but from the name, I could assume that they're Muslim too. So this is a normal Muslim Palestinian, and they're one.
Yeah. Who loved to have conversations with Christians. He wasn't, he just loved to talk about just anything, and neat guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I just so sad for me, Preston, when we have to keep focusing. Oh yeah, Palestinians are normal. No. It's just so sad that we have to have these conversations. Like the audience has to listen to this statement that Palestinians are people. It's just like it sickens me that we have to do that.
And it sickens me that it's honestly hard to say that out loud.
Yeah, totally.
But it's good. I think it's part of lament and confession. But it's like, as the words come out of my mouth now,
it's like,
I'm like, what? Yeah. What kind of Christian environment? Like, how do we miss that? I was raised Christian from day one. Like, why would I even have that lens? Who put that lens on my eyes? Like, it wasn't Palestinians. It wasn't people. It was just this evangelical machine that just has these major blind spots.
Yeah. Did you like this video? Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support the work we're doing here at the podcast, go over to patreon.com/acrossthedivide. Your support keeps us going. Thank you, friends.